My goal for this video series is twofold. One, I want to cover every trophy found here in this connected universe. This is the Platinum experience after all, and I want to help you collect every Platinum trophy and complete all your trophy lists 100%. That's the real easy part for me, all things considered. The other, much more difficult goal is to unearth how all of these games connect to each other and help you understand this crazy and cryptic universe better. The Remedy Connected Universe is a multimedia project that creates connections and through lines between Remedy's IPs in various ways. Remedy is focused on building franchise pillars that all connect to each other and then creating events where they intersect and cross over, like for example the AWE DLC in Control. Remedy is working on a number of different games, and it could eventually all crescendo into something massive and maybe even Avengers-like. The characters introduced so far have all started to appear in each other's games in interesting ways. So before we start making connections between these games, maybe you'd like to know what the games are, which ones are included, and which ones are left out. Sam Lake and Remedy have officially outlined which of their creations are canon to the RCU, and the games included are Alan Wake 1, Alan Wake American Nightmare, Control, and Alan Wake 2. That includes all DLCs for these games as well. At the time of releasing this video, FBC Firebreak, Remedy's co-op project that comes from the Control universe, is not out yet, but it is canon and I plan to cover it in its own part of this series. Control 2 will also be canon as well. But that leaves a few games left out for various reasons, and we won't be covering them in this series. The big one that stings the most is Quantum Break, which has plenty of evidence showing it's an in-universe game, but due to Microsoft owning the IP, it has been left out of the official canon as Remedy can't freely expand on it. This kinda sucks because it's clear Quantum Break was meant to sit in between these other games like Alan Wake and Control and be its own pillar. Just imagine the crossover potential. That makes me sad. There is also Remedy's very first game called Death Rally, which for sure is not canon, although it does exist in universe as a cool Easter egg and nod. Max Payne 1 and 2 are also left out, even though their stories are clearly referenced in-game under the Alex Casey novels. The Sudden Stop is an in-universe novel where the events of the book and Max Payne 1 and 2 are one and the same. And it doesn't get more damning than Alex Casey being a prominent character in Alan Wake 2, looking and sounding exactly like Max Payne. But alas, the Max Payne games are owned by Take-Two, and Remedy didn't make Max Payne 3 themselves. Now with Max Payne 1 and 2 getting remade by Remedy, a part of me wants to believe that maybe they might work them into the universe in a proper way, but this might just be wishful thinking. We shall see in time. Now it goes without saying that this is just my interpretation of the tales. There are smarter people than I who have done way more research than me and are probably covering things that I've certainly missed. It's good to seek out other videos if you want to go even deeper into the rabbit hole. Remember that this story is not a lake, it's an ocean, so there are certainly things I've probably missed. But on that note, enjoy this trophy guide / in-depth breakdown of the first chapter of the Remedy Connected Universe, Alan Wake. This universe all starts with Alan Wake, which came out all the way back in 2010 on the Xbox 360 exclusively. While it was a very popular game for Xbox, it was remastered in 2020 and many people got to play it for the first time, especially people playing on PlayStation hardware. That means we will be getting the Platinum Trophy for the remastered version, and thankfully it retains all of the Xbox achievements list. So as we pilot through our first of 2 playthroughs, we're aiming to grab every trophy we can aside from 2. Or at least try to anyway. There were a few trophies that ended up giving me trouble, and I decided to go back after I finished the story the first time and just do them separately with episode select. I'm pretty sure this will happen to you if you've never played the game before. Heck, maybe even people who have the 100 on Xbox. So it's 2 playthroughs no matter what, but at least nothing is missable. Playing on easy gets you the departure trophy, and playing on normal mode gets you the stack of both departure and hard-boiled writer. Don't worry too much about which one you decide to play on, because both will unlock nightmare mode at the end of this insane story, in which there are 11 related trophies to it. Very big spoiler warning here, because I want to discuss the plots of these games, and this will hopefully help you understand how all of this is connected in this grand connected universe that Remedy is building, still building to this day. Alan Wake is a major player in this overarching world, and understanding his story is important for understanding the Remedyverse as a whole and future games and projects. Alan Wake starts off with the namesake hero being stalked by a shadowy creature veiled in an aura of darkness. A disembodied voice reaches out to Alan Wake and gives him a tool to deal with his pursuer, which is a flashlight. And a gun, but yeah, mainly the flashlight. Light and darkness are major pieces to this intricate puzzle of a narrative, and I mean that literally. These dark beings, dubbed the Taken, are the result of good people succumbing to the influence of the Dark Presence, which has overrun Bright Falls and its surrounding areas. The Dark Presence will be your biggest adversary in this game, and it helps immensely to also think of this supernatural being as more than just a physical one. Unknowingly, this disembodied voice providing light will be your greatest ally. This person is named Thomas Zane. Later on in the story, he will also appear to you in a diver suit, but I'm pulling the cart before the horse now. Just keep these details in the back of your mind for now. Our writer Alan Wake will struggle with the Dark Presence, yes, physically, as this thing is doing everything in its power to kill you, but also a psychological Dark Presence for Alan as well. And it's very helpful for yourself to start thinking about the story as more than just a man trying to save his kidnapped wife from a mysterious bad actor. This initial tutorial sequence ends up just being a nightmare, and Alan Wake and his wife are here in Bright Falls on vacation in the hopes of breaking out of this spell of negativity he's been experiencing. He's been battling against a 2-year-long bout of writer's block, trying to continue his famed Alex Casey series of detective novels. The Sudden Stop was the last one he's been able to write, which is the one I mentioned earlier that mirrors the Max Payne games. I think it's fair to say that a dark presence is affecting Alan even before it's been threatened by one here in Bright Falls. So maybe this trip planned by Alice was either ill-conceived, or if you look at it in a symbolic way, maybe destiny. You will arrive in the town of Bright Falls with your said wife, Alice Wake, and visit the local diner and meet some of the fine folk in town. It's here we meet some very important people to the story, and that includes the rock stars, the old gods of Asgard. These guys, Thor and Odin Anderson, are rock gods who will be important characters in this game and very, very important in Alan Wake 2. For the Drink 'em Both Up trophy, we have to do them a favor and play both records from the jukebox. At this moment, you can only play one of them, but that's okay because we will visit the diner again later. So in order to get this trophy, you have to play the record here in episode 1, and then again in episode 5. I'll remind you when you get to that part of the Platinum experience. Another person you inadvertently meet is a woman dressed in black. Her name is Barbara Jagger. She looks shifty and shadowy because she is exactly that. Later in the episode, she kidnaps Alice Wake and drags her into the waters of Cauldron Lake. Alan goes in after her, and the scene cuts to Alan waking up somewhere else with no recollection of what happened next. The mystery of all these things I brought up officially starts here as you try to find out what happened to your wife. As you continue the chapter and start getting full control of Alan Wake, you're going to start running into all different types of collectibles scattered all over this experience. I really recommend doing a blind playthrough of this game if you can afford the time, because there are just so many collectibles here that it's incredibly distracting. Like, I swear, there are more coffee thermoses in this place than there are people. Who is drinking all this coffee? Imagine the craps. Having to stop and refer to a guide over and over really takes away from the experience because you can't just focus on what's going on in the story. I know we trophy hunters love efficiency, and the next chase for the next plat is always around the corner. But if you can spare it, just focus on the story at hand. Come on, just do it. So, let's get these collectibles out of the way before we get to the fun stuff. I mentioned the coffee thermoses, and there are 100 of them for the hyper-caffeinated trophy. Again, who is drinking all this? It's getting cold. A bigger problem than cold coffee, though, is the fact that if you miss a thermos, you're not going to know which one it was. So when I finished the game with 99 of them instead of 100, I had a big problem on my hands. The only indication of how many I was missing was in the statistics menu, but that only shows you totals. So be very careful and use a good guide like the one I have linked below. You don't want to miss one, or it's bad news bears. Bad news bears. That also applies to most of the collectibles, although for the manuscript pages, luckily they have names and are categorized per chapter. There are 91 of them to track down in this playthrough for the Picking Up After Yourself trophy. These pages are from the story that Alan Wake can't seem to finish, yet somehow already written in full. And since they are already written, sometimes you will pick up a page that is going to describe events that haven't happened yet, but will happen exactly word for word. This is such a unique storytelling device that I don't think I've ever seen in a game before. A ton of these manuscripts are meant to be found and will be on your main path. They're giving you warnings and foreshadowing what is going to happen. However, there are a bunch of pages you have to look on side paths and in hidden spots, as well as keep your eyes open for the illuminating glow. These pages will be a mainstay in Alan Wake games and way more interesting than coffee thermoses, and that's coming from someone who's wildly addicted to the stuff. Despite Alan suffering from writer's block for 2 years, it's a complete shock for him to find out he's actually written a story called Departure. Once I put 2 and 2 together, I realized Alan, and therefore you, the player, is playing out the story in real time. I was already getting a weird feeling, but now I realize the line between fact and fiction is completely blurred, and that is a major component to this story. The next collectible type is just good to know where they are, especially for your Nightmare Mode playthrough. Never mind the every nook and cranny trophy. There are 30 hidden chests to find, and inside of these are a variation of ammo, flashbangs, flares, batteries, and other helpful items. These will do a good job of keeping you stocked up, and the game wants you to find them by leaving hints in the form of arrows you can see when you shine your light on them. Shine it and follow the arrows to the direction to get everything you need to handle the taken. And then, because 200 plus wasn't enough things to find, we got TV broadcasts, radio broadcasts, and interesting signs to look at. These are the trophies on screen now, and they give you a lot more lore and hints about what's going on. The TV broadcasts are creepy because it's you, or maybe not. Maybe a past you, or maybe a different you. All answers in due time. Oh, and one more. We have the Carney trophy for knocking down 5 can pyramids. I love shotgun blasting these things. Now this is the only collectible where you don't have to collect all of them, as there are actually 12 of them in Bright Falls. There you go. 276 collectibles. For a game that's not open world, that is a ton. So that's all introduced in the first episode, but on top of that, there are many combat trophies and milestone trophies as well. Trophies like the Energize trophy for changing your flashlight battery 100 times. Considering how vital that flashlight is for keeping you alive, you will get this trophy very easily over time. And I loved using the flashlight, by the way. I think the combat is so good in this game because of its tense moments where you ward off Taken with your light, and then you can gun them down after their veil of darkness is gone. It's just so one of a kind and imaginative. Again, I keep saying this, I've never seen something like this in a game before. You also have 5 trophies here for getting a certain amount of kills with all 5 of your weapons, and then a few for environmental hazards. For me, the hunting rifle was king, and I grabbed that thing every time I found one. Great for taking down heavies and Taken getting on your nerves. For the environmental kills, there are a few chances to get this done, but there's enough in the game that will get you it on your first playthrough, if not, your second. There are also multi-kill trophies for some select weapons as well. The flare gun and the flashbang are really easy to decimate a Taken mob, but for the shotgun double, you will have to line it up or wait till you have a group of Taken in front of you, then a well-placed shotgun shot taking out 2 or more people will get you that trophy. The dodge mechanic works very well in this combat system, and you're going to use it a lot. Mainly for the Missed by a Mile trophy, where you need to slow-mo dodge successfully 20 times. Time will slow down if you do it right, and it's when the Taken is about to hit you. It's much more difficult to do this when you're getting attacked by a mob, and that's where flares come in handy. One of the most cinematic things I've seen in a long time is when you pull out a flare with a bunch of Taken surrounding you. This is the subject of the Back I Say trophy, which you get in this manner. If there are 3 or more Taken around you, you'll get the trophy, and this amazing slow-mo camera pan just looks really, really cool. That's a nice slice of the trophies, at least introduced, and we've only talked about one episode. And every episode ends on a cliffhanger, setting up the next one, and begins the next with a recap like a multi-part TV show. This first episode has set up the plot with Alan's wife going missing at the lake cabin in Cauldron Lake. It also introduces us to many new characters, some we're going to talk about shortly. Let's keep moving on into episode 2, where things are definitely getting more spooky.
Of discussing your situation with her on several occasions.
Did you set something up with her?
I invited her here. My clinic is a place where...
Oh, hey! Oh my! Take it easy.
Hey, nobody move! Get your hands off of my client!
Who are you?
I'm Barry Wheeler, his agent. If you have business with Mr. Wake, you talk to me. You yokels won't know what hit you once I sick my lawyers on your asses.
No harm done, Sarah. I'm all right. I don't want to press charges. Mr. Wake, my offer still stands.
Get me out of here.
There are no chapter trophies to look for here in chapter 2, but instead 2 really good spots to get trophies just out of the way early. This game has vehicle sections that are pretty great. The first one in the game is the perfect spot to get the right of way trophy for running over 15 Taken. You can use the headlights to weaken them, then proceed to make them a part of the exterior of the truck. And in this particular place, Taken will continue to spawn endlessly, so you can just keep driving around and running them down. Now, this isn't the only vehicle section in the story, so there's a chance you'll get it naturally if you don't want to just waste time here, but here is definitely a place you can just sit and get this trophy done quickly. This works the same way for the part where birds attack Barry at the cabin. It's a great spot to farm the "if it flies, it burns" trophy. You have to burn 1,000 birds with your flashlight, and if you like, you can definitely get this naturally over the course of 2 playthroughs, but here is a good place to get it over with because you are going to get swarmed. You can defeat the birds and then restart the checkpoint. Just keep doing this over and over again till you pop the trophy. By the end of this chapter, you will have met 2 very important people. One is Alan Wake's manager and longtime best friend, Barry Wheeler. He will continue to be your right-hand man throughout the game and even partner up with you in the field for some crazy moments we're going to cover shortly. The other is a more mysterious one, Dr. Emil Hartman, which is the whole reason you're here in Bright Falls. Turns out Alice was convinced to pick the place as the destination spot thanks to Dr. Hartman. If you have a feeling that this doc is a quack, well, you have good intuition. There is a reason he set up his Cauldron Lake Lodge right where it is, and definitely has ulterior motives. Episode 3 is where things get serious and seriously spooky. You can decide whether this next trophy is one or the other after I read it. Meet the Deadline asks you to get from the museum to Cauldron Lake in less than 30 minutes. Yes, a mini speedrun trophy embedded in this chapter. The clock starts after the cutscene with Alan passed out in the museum and he wakes up to the brisk nighttime air. So it basically starts in the dark, and the finish line is when you arrive at Cauldron Lake right after the huge Taken fight for your life in an abandoned building. Now there are a few obvious tips I can share for you, one of them being to do this on easy mode. Also, don't attempt this if you're trying to get collectibles at the same time, and definitely don't save this for your hard mode play. Episode Select is there so you can tackle this trophy separately. There are many key moments like the one I mentioned already that could slow you down, or the train yard, which you can actually just run through ignoring combat. You also have the section where you have to use the car to drive over to the power switch and turn it off. Make sure you use that car not just because it's obviously faster, but for protection. But there are 3 big moments to watch out for, and they all involve the paranormal. This is the episode where you start encountering poltergeists. Objects that become possessed by the dark presence, and now they come after you at great speeds. Now you can start working on the "they're here" trophy for destroying 20 poltergeists. Thankfully, you just have to shine the light on them, and from here on out, you will sporadically encounter them. Your first big surprising poltergeist is a freaking bulldozer. The heavy metal trophy is up for grabs if you can destroy it. This thing can do some serious damage to you, so you have to stay out of its way. Now, for the purposes of the speedrun, you can actually skip the fight if you open the gate and scurry off. But that won't get you the heavy metal trophy, so if you're trying to defeat the bulldozer and stay on time, save your flare gun shots and flashbangs for this fight, as that will help you take it down faster. Same advice for the Iron Horse trophy as you fight another big poltergeist in the form of a train engine. The difference here is the train splits in 2, and now you have to watch out for the steam engine and the caboose. Get yourself behind a tree for protection and start handing out flashbangs and flare gun shots if you want to get the trophy quickly. But if you have it already and you're just focusing on the speedrun, you can also skip this section to save time. One last thing to know about for the speedrun is the mine section, which has a bridge puzzle in it. You definitely want to have done this once already, or at least know the answer before going through this part. It will be easy to get stuck here as it's not as straightforward as just putting the bridge in the right spot. This mini speedrun trophy was a challenge, but I don't think it's the most challenging trophy of the whole video or even this platinum. I do believe there is worse, and let's move on to episode 4 to see if we can discover it.
Oh, that won't do. I'm so sorry to cut this short for now, Alan. The power has been acting up. I'd better go check on it. We'll continue this soon. Meanwhile, when you feel up to it, return to your room and try to write. really is for the best. Don't you think?
I'd like to bash his head in with a hammer.
Oh, he'd love to fish out our secrets, but he has no clue. He's not crazy enough. Not crazy like us, Sonny.
Yeah!
Being crazy's a requirement, Sonny. Who else could understand the world when it's like this? It takes crazy to know crazy.
That's the sanest thing I've heard in a while.
Zane! You're all right, Tom. Hey, we like him, don't we, bro? He's got to go to the farm.
The Anderson Farm. Valhalla!
We wrote it all down, lest we'd forget. A crash course. All you need to know to get your head right. You need to find the message.
Here, Sonny, here's something for you. Gave me a rash, but I kept it safe from these bastards.
You start episode 4 in the worst place possible. Dr. Hartman's facility, yes, the Cauldron Lake Lodge. He's not letting you go and he's gaslighting you so you can stay in the lodge. He thinks you're crazy, and judging by all the things going on around here, maybe a little bit, but we know this game has something else going on. You're not crazy, don't listen to him. Is it a coincidence that the old guards of Asgard are here too? Yes, it looks like Thor and Odin are crazy people, but 3 important people in one place? You will follow him around and hear him talk to himself for ages, but once shit hits the fan, thanks to the old guards of Asgard, you can wander around the facility and look for your escape. Using the key you stole off of one of the physicians, you can gain access to Dr. Hartman's office and get the Medical Opinions Trophy. If you found Barry and the weird cardboard cutout of Alan, you went too far. It is the first room on the left in the same hallway. Once you get in, you have to listen to all 3 of Hartman's recordings on the tape player. Make sure you keep pressing the play button and listening in till the trophy pops. Then a little later, the boob tube trophy is kind of inconspicuously hiding there. As you are making your escape and battling poltergeists, you will come to a room where you have to use light to take out a statue of 2 bears to progress. In that room, immediately after that, there is a TV that you have to watch to get the trophy. Normally, TVs tend to turn on by themselves, but this one, you have to switch on for yourself to make it happen. Make sure you are not rushing through this part and miss it altogether, although you can use episode select if you do miss it and it will help you get the trophy. So, much later in the chapter, you make it to a place where Thor and Odin tell you to go when you meet them at the lodge. You arrive at the Anderson brothers farm and find out that they have a really awesome setup here, including a full-on stage concert. You don't really have too much time to marvel at it, as now you're just getting absolutely swarmed with Taken, and you and Barry have to defeat them using the stage effects and lights. Now, to get the Child of the Elder God trophy, you not only have to survive the attack, but you have to do it like a rock god and make sure your health doesn't drop into critical levels, or let's say lower than 25 to 33%, just to be on the safe side. This makes the challenge a lot harder, as you sometimes fight them 10 at a time. I think it's obvious to do this on easy mode, but also make sure you grab supplies littered all across the stage, including flares and the pump action shotgun. There is also a heavy-duty flashlight that you can swap to, and that one burns away the darkness shields of enemies much faster. Barry will be working the effects and stage lights, but when you see a stage light shine in the middle where the vocalist stands, make sure you go into the light and it will get rid of all the Taken currently on screen. Use your flares when you need to create some space to breathe. Use flashbangs and flare guns, as they are often insta-kills, and keep an eye out on your left and right sides, as Taken will flank you. If all else fails and your health drops to the red, just restart the checkpoint and try this again. This section is a rush leading up to getting to the farmhouse. The events leading to the end of this episode had me very confused at first, but after some reading, it all makes sense now. At least for this universe. This is the scene where all is revealed, especially how this story all started. The Andersons were pulling strings all along, giving Alan the directions to go to the house and making it possible for him to escape the Cauldron Lake Lodge. This was so Alan could unearth the record called The Poet and the Muse and end up drinking some of their famous moonshine, which is actually made using the Cauldron Lake water as an ingredient. In the process of Alan getting turned up, Alan finds out everything that transpired in a dream. Alice is not dead, and Alan's attempts to find her are not in vain. Barbara Jagger has imprisoned her underneath Cauldron Lake, which is actually a portal to the dark place. Stay with me here for this next part. Alan, believing that Alice drowned in this lake, is manipulated by Barbara into writing the full story of Departure, where the dark presence escapes from Cauldron Lake and Jagger takes over the town in exchange for Alice's safe return. This is how Departure has so many manuscripts already, even though Alan doesn't remember writing any of it. However, Alan writes in his escape in the manuscript, which comes in the form of rescue by Thomas Zane. Thanks to Zane, Alan is able to evade the clutches of Barbara and the dark presence at the cost of Thomas Zane fully sinking into the dark place where he is currently trapped. The last minute save is not a random act of kindness by Thomas Zane, no. You find out that the poet in the song The Poet and the Muse is Thomas Zane, and the Muse is Barbara Jagger, who were a couple. There is also much more backstory and details on these two characters, but I'm going to try and keep it super simple here to not overwhelm you. I certainly was very overwhelmed when I got here, and had to do lots of reading to understand their connection fully. But here we go. Barbara accidentally discovers the dark place while swimming in Cauldron Lake one day while vacationing at the very same cabin Alan and Alice stayed in. Believing she drowned, Thomas Zane brings her back through the power of his writing the same way Alan Wake can. This was a suggestion made by one Dr. Emil Hartman, by the way. He knew something was up with this lake from the very beginning. This works, and Barbara comes back, but possessed by the dark presence, and to undo what he caused, it costs them both their lives at the bottom of the lake. This transaction connected Barbara deeper to the dark presence, and Thomas Zane connected with the light. So now Alan knows the truth, and as a result of him already writing the Departure manuscripts, the full-scale invasion of Barbara and the dark presence is set to happen. However, the booze-filled dream also reveals that Alan needs to find the Lady of the Light, as she is the key to stopping all this mess from happening. Just as Alan figures this all out, episode 4 ends with Alan and Barry getting thrown in jail. But they won't stay there for long, as the Dark Presence is now on a full-scale tirade. By this point in the story, the town of Bright Falls is overrun with Taken. Everyone is in hiding, and we need to get the heck out of here. And that's what we need to do for the unidyllic small town trophy. Except we need to leave the town of Bright Falls without dying. This part is a long section that starts at the police station, where you spend time in the slammer, and ends when we escape in a helicopter, and during all that time you can't die or you'll have to start from the very beginning of the episode. Suffice it to say, easy mode again, and take this section slow, searching for powerful weapons like flares, flashbangs, and power weapons. There are some standoff sections where you have to wait for our police friend Sheriff Sarah to get us through to the next area. This stakeout on the church steps is one of these, and you will get absolutely mobbed here. The other one is right at the very end when Sarah and Barry are starting up the helicopter to leave the town. This is a long section and it's gonna suck if you die here. Use the work lights on both sides of you to easily wear down darkness shields, but remember that they turn off by themselves and you have to turn them back on. Then make sure you use all of the flashbangs and flare guns that you have picked up while cruising through the town. Once you hear Barry yell the chopper is ready, don't waste time getting in and you'll get the trophy once the cutscene starts up if you didn't die. As a side note, make sure you visit the diner again while doing this trophy so you can play the second record for the Drink 'em Both Up trophy we talked about earlier in episode 1. This is the only other time you'll visit the diner in the story, so you'll have to play the second record and get that trophy. By the end of the episode, you make it to the Lady of Light, who is actually connected to Thomas Zane and his light. Inside of a dam, you are safe, thanks to a special place called the Well-Lit Room. And the gang makes it here too. But Alan knows that staying in the light is not going to fix what is going on outside of its rays. So we are set for the final episode of the story with Alan ready to make a mad dash to stop this once and for all. The Platinum Run has given us high stake trophy after high stakes trophy, and now that we head into the final chapter of the story, they serve us the absolute meatball of a trophy for this final episode. You made it to the dam at the end of episode 5, but now for the Gunless Wonder trophy, we have to make it from the dam to Cauldron Lake, where Alan can end all this without firing a single shot. What? No guns? This is the final level, no guns? Let me clarify what this entails. We need to go from the start of the chapter to the massive tornado at Cauldron Lake, which is the end of the chapter, only using flares, your flashlight, and flashbangs. No guns and no flare gun because that counts as a gun. Man, this is going to be annoying. Thankfully, there are a lot of car sections in this last episode, so you can use the car as a safe means of passage, but there are plenty of other parts where Taken will show up, and unless you expend your flashbangs, you can't kill them. For those parts where you have Taken on your tail, you need to either get cozy with the run and dodge button, or pop a flare and hold on to that sucker to get you where you need to go. The standoff at the construction site is the hardest part of this gunless run, but thankfully there is a high-powered spotlight that you can use to burn away enemies completely. Now, the silver lining about this trophy is there are no restrictions on death, so you can mess up while attempting this trophy. As well, if you accidentally pull the trigger, you can restart the last checkpoint and it doesn't record that you fired a shot. But the tension for this chapter trophy is certainly immense, as you have to be smart while making your way to Cauldron Lake. I wouldn't necessarily classify this game as a survival horror, but you are really managing your resources, and there might be a few moments where you might leave a nice lump of coal in your underwear. But if you make it to the steps of the tornado without firing a single shot, you will get the last trophy you need for this playthrough. And in the face of this tornado, the Dark Presence, and Barbara Jagger, Alan jumps into the lake. He enters the dark place, which is a twisted, distorted version of his memories. He also finds Thomas Zane and not a twisted illusion of him. Thanks to him, Alan is able to find a device that can fix all this and rewrite the final manuscript pages of the departure story. This item is called the Clicker, and Alan shoves it in the heart of darkness herself, killing her. As Alan writes the new manuscript pages that will set things right, he ponders how a mystery novel must end, again suggesting the line between reality and fiction is blurred. He states that the ending must be balanced and even. And with the way Alice emerges from the water and Alan does not, well, this is balanced and even. It's not a lake. It's an ocean. Nightmare mode is unlocked once you beat your first run of the story on either easy or normal, so no matter what, it's 2 playthroughs for the plat. This time we are aiming for the Alan Wake Up trophy, which is of course for beating Nightmare mode. This mode definitely changes a couple of things, like the fact that enemies take way more shots to bring them down. Now, heavy enemies will take about 2 reloads of your revolver to kill, so you might need to do a better job managing your ammo accordingly and save your power weapons for the heavies. Taken also do more damage to you, and poltergeists become way more annoying if they barrel into you. So, with the hindsight of having experienced the game at least once, you have to decide when it's a good time to hunker down and eliminate Taken in front of you, or when it's time to mad dash to a spotlight ahead. That's a valid strategy too. Running is a valid strategy in this mode. Why waste ammo when the spotlight just kills everything anyways? You also might want to recollect the secret chests while doing this playthrough because of all the goodies inside of them. They might help you navigate some of the more difficult places we have discussed already. The battle with the birds at the cabin, big vehicle poltergeists, the abandoned building fight, the gig at the Andersons farm, the construction site, showdown, plus some I haven't discussed, and you'll find out when you play this game. Now you have to do all these moments on Nightmare mode. You're going to die a lot while doing this, and that's okay considering how generous most of the checkpoints are. If something is not working out, you can try a different strategy and use different weapons to get it done. I think this Nightmare mode is difficult, but it's not the most difficult thing I've experienced in a game. It will give you a challenge, but it's not a crazy challenge that you won't be able to do it. The second run through of this game is not just for getting this last trophy you need, as the game does something I haven't seen before. The last trophy we have to cover for this platinum run is called Collector's Edition, and it is for collecting 15 manuscript pages that are exclusive to Nightmare mode. Yeah, weird, right? It's hinted in the statistics page that there are a total of 106 manuscript pages, but you only found 91 when you played it the first time. If you go to the spots where these exclusive manuscript pages lie in easy or normal mode, they won't be there. So now you have 15 more to collect. Some of these manuscripts would have told you way too much for the first experience, as I feel they would have given away too much info and spoiled some of the mystery. Plus, some of these manuscripts are lyrics for the old god songs that are very on the nose, like The Poet and the Muse. It's actually great that you can access these after the fact to hopefully make sense of this story in total. But once you beat Nightmare mode and get the last 15 manuscript pages, you are done with the first platinum in the Remedyverse. And congratulations! You will be awarded the Platinum Trophy for Alan Wake Remastered. Yeah. Okay, I know this once Xbox 360 exclusive didn't have a Platinum Trophy then because 360 games don't have Platinums. But they could have come up with something clever for a new name, right? He's a writer if you didn't know. If I could say a few words about this game and the Platinum Trophy, is that I've never played anything like this game before. Not that I've ever played a third-person action game before, that's not what I mean. I mean the content of the story and the narrative devices. This game is absolutely messing with you when it comes to blurring of time and space, the dimensions of what is possible, and even how unreliable the character we are controlling is. He's absolutely an unreliable narrative in this. It's a fever dream, constantly making us question what and who are real and fake, and I love it all. I also love the mechanics that surround it because even with a great story, at the end of the day, it's a video game. The uniqueness of gameplay really helps deliver this story and keeps the player delving further into the dark. And when those things are good, it becomes easy to develop a great platinum run around it. Or back then it was an achievement run. There are awesome chapter trophies that give you a variety of no-death runs, speed runs, trophies that you have to master the mechanics to get them, and interesting trophies that take advantage of already what's been created for this game. I think there are too many collectibles personally, but at least the manuscript pages are a very unique and interesting collectible, and absolutely worth finding them all and listening and just seeing all the lore that comes out of it. Again, I loved this experience and it was the catalyst for making this video. So our next stop on the journey should be Alan Wake's American Nightmare according to the official canon Sam Lake laid out. But as I was finishing up the first game, I realized that there are 2 DLCs. You might think to yourself, how important could they be? They're just DLC. Well,
I knew it was my writing, but the words were jumbled dreamlike fragments. Reloading frantically. The rounds slippery stones throw away from the tent. The bed looked inviting, but it was just the radio. It had to go on. She was startled by the phone. The GPS system was working. I hadn't expected that.
the reason I included DLC trophies in this video instead of just focusing on the core experiences is because it's all consequential. All of it. Every piece of content that includes Control's DLC as well. The script and the writer both take place after the main story has concluded and are obviously necessary pieces of content for understanding all of this. These two DLCs are labeled Special 1 and Special 2 and feel like a combined big event. If you picture Alan Wake's story as Season 1 of a show, then these two DLCs are the special presentations of the show, or OVAs if you're an anime fan. The main story of the first Alan Wake has an ending, but at least to me, it didn't feel like a conclusive one. It's more bitter than sweet, that's for sure. And every good mystery novel leaves room for more anyway. We got the idea that the lines between what's real and fiction were ultimately blurry and skewed, but just as you start figuring out the rules of this universe, these two DLCs throw it all out of whack again, almost like it's about to collapse in on itself. Episode 6 ends with Alan finishing his story, Departure, but at a price. The ending he comes up with restores peace to people and places around him, but not for himself. In fact, Alan traps himself deep inside the dark place in the process of creating a balanced ending for his story. The final words of the episodes, which I already said to you, it's not a lake, it's an ocean. These words are meant to be highly metaphorical, and Alan is saying the darkness within us all can be vast and expansive as an ocean, and it's much harder to escape a body of water this big. So this is where the script story starts, as Alan finds himself in a darker nightmare on the brink of insanity. Despite finishing Departure, he's already working on his next follow-up without really sorting out the issues creating the writer's block in the first place. And what is he even writing? What is he writing for? Why is he writing? He has not sorted out these things inside of his head. He cannot write another story until he does this. In this dark place, Alan finds himself reliving the events in the main story, but now even darker and more distorted. Alan is really deep in the dark place, but there's a light and a voice reaching out to him, and that's of course Thomas Zane again. Zane is trying to guide Alan like he did before, but ultimately Alan is breaking and win a battle with what is essentially the most extreme and insane version of himself, only ends up bringing him back to that damn lodge. Well, this man is on the brink, isn't he? Before we continue the story in the writer, of course we have some trophies to grab. 2 of the 8 trophies are story related, so that leaves us with 6 left. We have 2 new collectible types in this special episode, both with trophies attached. The trophy for finding all 10 alarm clocks is called Tick Tock, and the reason why Alan is collecting these is, I got nothing. It's just something to collect. Maybe they're supposed to help Alan wake up, but if he's truly trapped in the dark place, it's gonna take a lot more than alarm clocks to get him out of here. What about his friends? Oh, they are cardboard cutout stands this time, like the one of Alan that Barry keeps bringing with him. Anyways, the trophy Cardboard Companions is for finding 6 cardboard cutouts. There's one for Barry, Torrin Odin Anderson, Alice, Sarah Breaker, and Cynthia Weaver. For both of these collectibles, there's a guide below to help you. The next 3 trophies are collected during certain sections of the script, like the Words Will Never Harm You trophy being found in the furnace room. You will have to trigger all 100 furnaces in the church basement by shining your flashlight on all instances of the word blast. Doing this is great for burning incoming taken, that's for sure, but there are literally 100 of these in the room, and you have to keep triggering the blast until you get them all and get the trophy. The next one can be collected later when you get to the section with the poltergeist cars. Damn, these freaking things are annoying in this special, especially this one. Here, you can get the License Revoke trophy, and the trophy description says to complete the signal without entering a vehicle, but this is only in this section where you can get in a car. So simply beat this section on foot instead. Run to the power switch on the other side, avoiding getting run over, then run back, avoiding getting run over. Alan is going to have good cardio after all this is all settled. Yeah, basically to get this trophy, beat this section on foot and it's simply yours. The second last trophy has us right at the moment we're facing off against our erratic self in the TV, and we have to beat this section quickly for the Fast and Furious trophy. How fast do we need to clear this? Under a minute and a half. 90 seconds is all the time we have to deal with this section. Obviously it can be done, but we need to prep way beforehand in order to do this correctly and quickly. We don't have a lot of time, so we have to deal with all the threats in front of us, and the best weapon to do this is, of course, the flare gun. Over the course of the DLC, you will get a total of 8 flare gun shots, and this weapon will make this part comically easy, even when you have to wear down the boat that appears. You will get 2 as part of the story, and then you can find 6 more. If you have about 3, 4, or 5 in your pocket, that's good enough. You will be able to use it to take down everything in your way and get through this section and get the job done. There is also one more trophy to cover called Run On Sentence, but I'm going to cover it with one other trophy that appears in the writer. So put a bookmark here on this page and we will come back to it.
There you go, Alan. It's all in your head. You've been making it up.
Really, Wake? Really?
Your
Delusions are out of control.
Get out of my head.
Seriously, Al, you need to get a grip. You know reality's different here. See what I mean, Al?
The writer picks up the pen and starts writing where the script left off. And then we have another Taken-filled, mind-bending episode to survive where we grab 2 more story trophies. This time there is only one collectible type to grab. The Licensed Properties trophy is for finding 10 Night Springs video games. Now what's funny is that when they remastered the game, they changed this collectible from Xbox 360 copies of Night Springs to just a generic looking cover without a system. This collectible is again less consequential to the narrative, but that's okay. 10 more things to add on to the big ass pile, I guess. Then we get to a number of environmental trophies like Whirlwind. There is a section where you have to jump across platforms being held up by a freaking tornado. Again, as if things couldn't get any weirder. Now you have to get across this section in less than a minute. Thankfully, it's easy if you know which platforms to activate. The time starts when you pick up the manuscript page, and then you want to activate the bridge word here, which gets you a platform that you can actually stand on. Then shine your light on the path, watch out for this taken boy here, make it to the upper part of the tornado. Now do the same thing as before, find a bridge and reveal the path. Then your mini speedrun ends when you start climbing the ladder. It's a very short run and pretty easy as long as you know how to traverse these sections and don't fall, of course. After you venture through the rotating room section, which is mad trippy, but I guess normal by now, you will enter a room where you have our absolute favorite guy hanging out with yourself. Dr. Hartman is here with you, except you have a TV head for some reason. Now for the Heartbreaker trophy to kick in, you have to listen to this twisted therapy session and listen to all of what Hartman and Alice have to say. Alice comes into the picture at some point as well. Now if you don't want to listen to this dribble, you can leave. The door is right there, but you won't get the trophy. Wait around until they're done talking, and then when everything is silent, I mean this guy's rarely silent, but he will be after this, then you can leave and get the trophy. Immediately after you leave that section, you can get another trophy. Cross the wings of the downed plane and follow this path here so you can get the Creative Space trophy. It's a bit hidden and there are a few taken to deal with, but down this hidden path, you will find a giant typewriter that you can even interact with to get some supplies. This fever dream just keeps getting more feverish by the second, and it doesn't quite stop right up until the end. Our next trophy takes place in the lead up to the lighthouse, a place you go at the very beginning of this whole experience. That trophy description sounds like it's going to be a nightmare to get, but it's actually quite easy. Go gentle into that good light asks you to get to the lighthouse without firing a weapon, similar to the one before. You will get a cutscene and then from that moment you can't fire a weapon until you get to the lighthouse at the top of the hill. Yes, very similar to the one we did in the base game, but much shorter and much easier. This is because the light coming from the lighthouse is panning across your pathway and will just decimate every taken in its path. Your job then is to just make sure the light is not blocked, and you can do this by shining the light on the words clear, which blow up the rocks and cliffs blocking the light from coming in. Now there are a few spots where the light won't shine, so no matter what you have to do a little bit of dodging, but this trophy is much easier than it sounds, and I did it on my first try. Finally, we get to the end and have to square off with Barry and the gang in that epic showdown at Diver's Isle. It's not the real Barry, he'd never betray you, but it is in this dark place. As you fight them off, you have to worry about getting the Iron Will trophy, which asks you to survive this final encounter without your health dropping lower than 25%. Also very similar to the stage showdown at the Andersons' farm in the base game, except now the Andersons and Barry are attacking you. The Taken you have to deal with here are the fast-moving kind, and you deal with multiple ones. Make sure you come into this fight with as many flares, flashbangs, and flare gun shots as possible, as they will make this battle much more manageable. Even on easy mode, they will hit you hard, so you want to make some space with the flares when they get too close for comfort. There are lots of ammo boxes, so don't worry about ammo, and you can spray shotgun shots if you want to. Same situation with batteries, so keep the flashlight shining. It's not an impossible trophy, but a few wrong moves can be your downfall, and if you dip into the red, just restart the checkpoint and try again. With that last boss defeated, Alan enters the cabin and finds the doppelganger of himself from before, the more erratic one that will be later known as Mr. Scratch. This is the moment of clarity for Alan as he figures out what to do next. He will write another novel, one called Return. This novel will help him escape the dark place and return to the real world. And this is where the story for Alan Wake 1 really ends. For real this time, to be picked up later on in Alan Wake 2. Those are also all the trophies for the writer except one. Plus, we still need to cover the last one for the script, and as you might have deduced, the two trophies go hand in hand. Now we will have to do a second playthrough for both DLCs, the script and the writer, to collect two trophies called Run-On Sentence in the script and No Punctuation in the writer. Both of these trophies ask you to beat their respective DLCs in one continuous go. That means you need to do them in one sitting where you can't quit back to the menu or restart to checkpoint at any time. And more concerning, this also means you can't die at any time either. So now we have no death trophies. This nightmare just keeps getting worse. Despite both stories being relatively short, I still had trouble with these no death runs for various reasons, even on easy mode. There is no time limit, so thankfully you can take these as slow as you want, but that doesn't help ease your nerves piloting certain sections of these runs. The script's problem is that there are so many Taken and Poltergeist after you that it's easy to slip up and succumb to the darkness. In the beginning, you have plenty of ambushes as you are trying to get out of Bright Falls town. You will have the weakest flashlight, will have to hunker down in spaces where you are trapped or confined, and I swear the Poltergeists are possessing the biggest things they can find in this place. The Dark Presence is doing everything in its power to kill you, and in a run where you're not expected to die. Later on, you have the forest section where the street lamps turn on and off randomly. You have the sawmill section where I died once and I had to start all over. And then, of course, I had to save my flares for the insane Alan fight, which I was not risking dying there, as that would have been a whole big ass waste of time and worst spot to end a run. You need to be patient with this no death run and not rushing through it as if it were a speed run. It will help if you have played it before and you start to remember all the holes that enemies pop out of. I guess if you're absolutely skilled, you can get this trophy and all the other trophies in one glorious playthrough, but good luck with that. That sounds insane. And if you can do it, you have my respect. Then you have to do the no death run in the writer. And the biggest problem with this one is all the awkward platforming you have to do in this dash to the finish. We got a taste of it with the Whirlwind Trophy jumping on those platforms in the sky, but there are more of these sections throughout the dash. The other sections you need to be careful about are the beginning with the Taken showdown in front of Hartman's Lodge, the bridge section after you reach Stucky's gas station, and then all the sections we mentioned in the other trophies with the run to the lighthouse and the final moments facing Barry. Between the two no-death runs, I think the writer is easier because the combat sections are less oppressive. But then again, there is the stiff platforming to deal with, which shows its ugly head a few times in this DLC. If you just jump awkwardly and fall, well, back to the beginning you go. I guarantee that both of these trophies are going to require memorization and multiple playthroughs just to get it right. It was exactly like that for my personal trophy journey, but once I squared off those two trophies, that was every trophy found in the original Alan Wake game. One of the major pillars in the Remedy connected universe was conquered with excitement to play the sequel Rising. But not yet. We have more to cover before we can really get into Alan Wake 2. A lot more, actually. There is a 13-year gap between the games after all, and Remedy was certainly busy in between. So onward to Remedy's next title that is part of this universe. We mentioned it already. It is the often forgotten American Nightmare. Alan Wake's American Nightmare is a very interesting little game. It's got the same look and feel as the first game, yet different. I can't quite put my finger on it. It definitely feels more refined in the combat department, but it's missing a lot of the atmospheric nature of the first game, being much lighter on horror. And I'm not even saying that because it's a smaller title that was released on Xbox Live Arcade. Ah, yes, about that. Remedy remastered the original Alan Wake and brought it over to PlayStation, but they decided to skip this game. But this game is canon in the Remedyverse, and like the first game's DLC, this game is absolutely consequential to the overall narrative. It introduces a stylized version of what will become a major character to the story named Mr. Scratch. Not quite the same, but he definitely will be back later in Alan Wake 2. So if that's the case, we really can't skip it, and I certainly don't want to. That means for the first time ever, we are actually covering achievements. That's crazy. Our first set of Xbox achievements on this PlayStation Trophies related channel. Although, note that I have to mention that I'm playing the version on Steam for footage because my 360 is borked. Curse you, Red Ring of Death. Just pretend this is on actual Xbox hardware. The Steam achievements are the same anyways as the Xbox one, so pick your poison. Let's start with the story trophies. Story achievements. This game is important, so if you don't want to play this game or you don't have the hardware, listen to what I have to say about it, or even check out a Let's Play of the game. It may not seem like it's important because they didn't bother remastering it, but trust me when I say it is. You have 4 trophies. I did it again. 4 achievements to unlock over the course of the story mode. It will only take you 3 to 4 hours to complete the narrative this time, and this special presentation is split into 3 acts. American Nightmare feels like another special episode like the script and the writer, and it presents itself like that right in its very opening moments. Whereas the script and the writer have direct implications for the story as a whole, American Nightmare is like a side chapter that doesn't really impede the player from just going from Alan Wake 1 to 2, but it's definitely still canon, just in a weird way. Think of Alan Wake American Nightmare as a failed attempt to escape the dark place and one of Alan Wake's many drafts for his next novel return. This game will definitely help you departmentalize this story much better. For example, it's like Star Wars The Clone Wars. You can watch Star Wars 2 and then watch 3 with no problems, but The Clone Wars builds out more of the world, characters, and lore. When we eventually get to Alan Wake 2, it may seem like this game didn't matter, but if you do experience American Nightmare, you will have more information on a few prominent topics like Alan Wake's novel Return, Mr. Scratch, and more things like that. I know this is getting complicated, I hear you. I had to do a lot of reading for this video. I'm doing my best, but just try to follow along. This time, the story takes place in Night Springs, Arizona. Night Springs is also the Twin Peaks / Twilight Zone inspired show that was airing on TVs in the first game, and the connection is thrilling because Alan Wake used to be an episode writer for the show before he started his Alex Casey series. But now, as a fictional place, Alan's writings and ideas sort of come to life as the Taken have invaded this place too. If the Dark Place was manipulating Alan's memories of what happened in Bright Falls, well, why wouldn't it manipulate something in his past, like his work done for a hit TV show? It's also something personal to him and another avenue for the Dark Place to absolutely torment Alan. Remember to interpret things symbolically as well. Alan probably has tons of mixed emotions being a writer for a huge production like Night Springs, where he was new to the business, building his craft in a very high stakes environment. The Dark Place is definitely going to look for every wound and insecurity Alan might have from this period of his life, and constantly throw it back at him in the worst ways. After playing this game long enough, I found out that I'll be revisiting the same 3 places a total of 3 times, each taking what I learned in the last time loop and applying it to the next one. The time loop always starts at the motel, then transitions to the observatory, and then finishes at the drive-in theater. Just like the first game, you have to collect all the manuscript pages for the One Day I'll Buy a Stapler trophy. Yeah, you better buy one. How many times are you gonna lose these things? And how many times are you gonna forget you wrote them? Come on, Alan, pull yourself together, man. There are 53 this time, which is still a lot considering how short the story is, but at least you don't have Nightmare Mode exclusive ones this time. Reading and listening to these are again really helpful for giving you the greater context of the story and characters, and letting you know what's coming ahead as well. Remember that. They even do a great job of contextualizing the original game, as it often references it and sometimes just straight out explains events from the first game. There is some really good context here on Mr. Scratch, as well as letting in why he is here, his motivations, and the havoc he has been causing pretending to be the original Alan Wake. And speaking of him, he is stalking Alan through all of these places. This version of Mr. Scratch is still a doppelganger of Alan, but he's more of a charming, seductive kind of monster rather than the voracious and erratic one we meet again in Alan Wake 2. This one has more of a sleazy kind of approach, and he has the ability to charm and control people to do what he wants. He's just as dangerous, and he's trying to prevent you from solving the mystery and keeping Alan from breaking the loop and getting out of this place. And by the 3rd time you go through the loop, you eventually break through, but I don't think Alan is coming out of the Dark Place quite yet. You piece the final puzzle together, blast Mr. Scratch with a nice, meaty burst of light, and reunite with Alice. But it all feels like a fever dream. The last time Alan got the chance to make things right, he had to be concerned about keeping balance, and this seems like he's getting the whole cake and eating it too. This is shown to you by the dark clouds that still follow Alan Wake at the end of the story, and how the sign-off for the Night Spring show goes. This was a failed attempt to return, and the manuscript is just not perfect enough to get him out of the Dark Place. Remember when I said you have to think about these stories metaphorically as well? This is what happens when a writer just doesn't feel like what's he's penned down is good enough. That shadow of self-doubt looms over you even when you have completed work. American Nightmare is a short tale, but I still think it's worth either watching or playing for yourself. I'm gonna keep saying that because it's good. Those 5 achievements, 4 story and 1 collectible, are the only ones exclusive to story mode, but 2 achievements can be collected in both story mode and arcade mode, which we will talk about soon. The first one is the Split Splat achievement for taking down 2 splitters with 1 shot, which is a cool new type of taken introduced in this game. When you shine a light on a splitter, it will subdivide itself into 2 splitters, and this process can keep happening. So you ideally want to create a whole group of them and then get out your shotgun and blast them all away. If you take out 2 of them with 1 blast, boom! Achievement! The other one is called Pile 'em High, and through story mode you can certainly contribute to it, but you definitely won't get it in one playthrough. This achievement asks you to defeat 2,000 taken of any variety, and I'm telling you now, one playthrough of story mode will just make a small dent in this total. The rest of the 2,000 count is going to be made up when you try and collect the rest of the achievements in arcade mode, so let's waste no time and start collecting those. Arcade mode is essentially horde mode with a twist. Man, Gears of War had a big effect on everybody, because after that, traditional single player series like Alan Wake, Uncharted, and Resident Evil and much more started to include the damn thing and multiplayer. Well, the twist here is that you have to survive hordes of Taken until the sun comes up. If you can do that for the first time, you will get Glorious Dawn. To do this, you will need to survive for 10 minutes on any map you like. To pull this off, you will need to do a combination of kiting, grabbing the most effective weapons, and knowing where the reload stashes are on the maps. The most important thing to know is that the weapons you unlock by collecting manuscript pages in story mode are here too. You can get your hands on an assault rifle, combat shotgun, and even more powerful weapons, so it's a good thing we cleared out story mode achievements first. These weapons and strategies are very necessary to help you get the Poetry in Motion achievement. Now this one asks you to keep a 6-minute survivor streak going, which means just keep your multiplier going and post 100,000 points in a single level. That's quite a lot of points to have to post up, so it's important to know the map inside and out and make sure you don't get hit. I did this achievement on the trailer park map, and I was actually able to stand my ground beside the Magnum spawn. It's wide open so you can see them coming and no one can really get behind you. Plus the ammo stash isn't very far when you need to reload. When the dawn hits, it will get rid of the rest of the Taken and should score you some big points. That should make up the rest of the points you need if you haven't already hit 100,000 for the achievement. This next one is another challenge where the description sounds hard, but it's actually quite easy. Skill Beats Gun wants you to survive any level using only the flashlight and handheld flares. Wait, no guns again? How do you do that? I can't win if I can't kill anything. Well, yes you can. You can just take advantage of wave 1 only having 2 Taken chasing you, and you just have to run around them and dodge when you need to. I'd queue up Yakety Sax by Benny Hill, but I think it's copywritten. Do, that's all you get. Just keep bobbing and weaving until you get the sunrise, and that's another one. Now you're going to want to keep going through each of these arenas one by one until you complete the first 5. Then things start to get more serious. Now you will start unlocking the nightmare versions of those same 5 arenas. The difference between the regular version and the nightmare versions is that now there are no gaps in between waves of enemies, and on nightmare mode, Taken will just keep spawning. This one slight change to the rules makes these arenas much harder and a whole lot tougher to make it to sunrise. This fact makes getting the second last achievement, Enter the Nightmare, pretty challenging because you need to unlock all 5 Nightmare Arcade Mode levels. To unlock the Nightmare version of the trailer park, you will need 24 stars. So ideally, if you score 3 stars on the 5 easy mode arenas, you will need to make up 9 more stars. Unfortunately, that means you'll have to 3-star one of the Nightmare arenas, which means scoring about 50,000 points. That's a lot of points for this mode considering the difficulty. But in the end, you're going to have to reach higher than that for our last achievement, so get comfy for this next one. We saved the hardest achievement for last, and the reason why the 200 gamer score difficulty is so high. It's called Survivor. And to get this one, you now have to score 70,000 points on any Nightmare Arcade level. It was hard enough to score 50,000 points to get the 3-star ranking. Now the list is asking us to usurp that by going 20,000 points higher. This was a tough achievement to collect because it demands perfection. Not only will you need to keep your survivor streak going against the unending Taken onslaught, but now you have to time it perfectly so that if you survive until sunrise, you can cash in on the enemy still alive when your multiplier is high. I'm not saying it's impossible to do this, as obviously people have done it, but you have to be very proficient with the game's mechanics. You absolutely need those unlockable weapons I mentioned earlier to be on the map, and you have to constantly keep moving and dodging. When you pass by the ammo restock cabinet, make sure you pull out a flare to keep you safe while you grab it. Flares are also very helpful when you get cornered and could save your run from ending prematurely. I still think the easiest map to do this is the trailer park, so if you want to go for this achievement, I suggest trying it on that one. Honestly, good luck with this one, as I think it's the most challenging trophy/achievement in the entire video. And with that last achievement, congratulations, you now have achieved 200 gamer score for Alan Wake American Nightmare. That puts an end to the American Nightmare, and it's now time to put the Alan Wake series down for a bit for something new. The next pillar in the Remedyverse. Quantum Break might have been deemed non-canon for the Remedyverse, but the project Remedy created afterwards sure as hell is. It might be the most important IP in this whole universe, in fact. But before we move on, I'd like to say some words about American Nightmare, as I think it's pretty good. Maybe I don't think it is something everyone should experience, and by all means go watch a recap or let's play if you like, but if you have the right platforms, give it a go. I got it for $10 on Steam, so it's an easy 3 to 4 hours of your time. Unless you're going for the 200 gamer score, then the challenge ramps up, and then it's up to you if you want to continue doing that or not. Completion is going to require you to love horde modes and score challenges, because if you don't, I can't really recommend the average player going the distance and getting all of the achievements. It's not that bad, but I don't see many people necessarily taking the time to get all the achievements when trying to cruise through the Remedyverse. It's just a tough time doing it, and if you like a challenge, then I definitely think you should try and get 200 gamer score. Now that we've covered American Nightmare in all its very short and small glory, let's meet our next main character, as it's now control time.